Hey, we're going to go over some examples of the zero product property. So in case you're having any issues with the zero product property, I'm going to go over some examples. Now, it's really important that we know how to use the X method, or we know how to factor. So if you know how to factor not using the X method, that's great. Just need to know how to factor. So let's start off with just some examples on factoring. If I give you x squared plus 11x plus 24, and I say that equals 0. So see, not only am I going to factor, but I'm going to solve. So anytime you have an equal sign, you're going to solve. We're going to solve for x. All right. Well, first we're going to factor. Okay. Now there's a couple ways. There's something called the x method. So if you're not very familiar with factoring, then use the x method. The x method goes like this. You draw a big X, and in the top, you're going to multiply the a value times the c value. Well, we need to remember what the a and the c value are. So for a quadratic equation, I'm going to go ahead and put a y equals in front. This is our standard form. Standard form looks like this, where we have the a in front of x squared, the b is in front of our x value, and then the last value is c, which is the constant. That is our number that has no x attached, okay? So in this case, our a value is in front of the x squared, which is just 1, and then our c value is 24. So 1 times 24 is 24. Then the b value is 11. So now that we put the a times c in the top and the b goes at the bottom, think as b as bottom, so that's at the bottom. Then on the two sides, we have to figure out what multiplies to get 24, but adds to get 11. So a number times the number is going to give us 24, but those same numbers that you choose have to add to 11. Well, this is where you're going to have to start playing with the factors of 24. So 24 could be like 1 times 24, but 1 plus 24 is not 11. What about 2 times 12? Because 2 times 12 is 24, but 2 plus 12 is 14, not 11. 3 times 8, ooh, I think we got it. 3 times 8 is 24, and 3 plus 8 is 11. So we have our factors. So now to write this out, I'm going to write it out like this. Start off with the first piece, which is x squared. And you know what? I'm going to erase a little bit of this so I can make some room. So I have 1x squared plus, and then I'm going to take the next piece, which is 3. Now I'm going to attach x's to these two, okay? So 3x plus 8x, because in the middle, that's what's going to get us that 11x, okay? And then plus, then the last number here is 24, okay? So now that I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and group these. I'm going to figure out what the greatest common factor is. So by doing so, I'm going to group these two here, and then I'm going to group those two there. So looking at these first two, what do they have in common? Well, from an x squared and a 3x, they both have an x in common. So I'm going to take out the x. And then in parentheses, because I'm dividing out an x, what's left? Well, if I take an x out of x squared, I'm left with just 1x. Plus, if I take out the x from the 3x, I'm left with just a 3. So x plus 3. Plus, because there's this plus here, now I got to factor these next two. What do they have in common? The greatest common factor. Well, 8x and 24, they both have an 8 in common. So I'm going to take out the 8. And then in parentheses, I'm left with, well, if I take out the 8 out of 8x, I'm left with just the x. And if I divide 8 from 24, so 24 divided by 8, that's going to be left with a positive 3. And what you should notice is that in the parentheses, they should be exactly the same, x plus 3 and x plus 3. So one of the factors is going to be x plus 3. That's those two. So I'm going to cross it out because they're gone. And what's left? Well, there's an x plus 8. So the last factor is x plus 8. So those are the factors, x plus 3 and x plus 8. And then we're going to set it equal to 0 because remember, we are solving. So whenever you set it equal to 0, set each factor equal to 0. So again, I'm going to have to make some room here. Well, let's just clear the board. So we have x plus 3 and x plus 8 equals 0. So now I'm going to set x plus 3 equal to 0. That's the first factor. And the next factor is x plus 8 equals 0. So once you have your factors, you can set the factor equal to 0, each factor. And now we solve for x. Let's get x by itself. So we got to subtract 3 from both sides. That's going to get x equals -3. And we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. That's going to give us x equals -8. And those are our solutions. Pretty cool. All right, let's do another example. This is factoring, and then this is using the zero product property. So the zero product property means set it equal to 0 once you have the factors. So let me just give you another example. For example, what if they already give us the factors? So they say, let's see, I wrote one down. 2 times x minus 3 times 3x plus 4 equals 0. So notice we already have the factors because they're already in parentheses. That's really good because we can skip the x method. So what we're going to do is we're going to set each parenthesis equal to 0. Now you might be thinking about, well, what about this too? Well, that's a good point. Well, what's the action happening between the 2 and that parentheses? Since it's outside the parentheses, it's multiplying. So we can divide the whole thing by 2, and the 2's will go away on the left side, and 0 divided by 2, well, 0 divided by anything is still 0. So the 2 just kind of goes away, which is really nice. Okay, now we have the parentheses. So set each parenthesis equal to 0. So x minus 3 equals 0. That's the first factor. Then 3x plus 4 equals 0. That's the second factor. Now that we have the factors, let's solve for x. So we're going to add 3, x equals 3. There's one solution. And then subtract 4, so 3x equals -4. Well, we're going to have to divide both sides by 3 to get x by itself. So x equals -4/3. There you have it. You have 2 solutions. Awesome. Let's see what else we have. All right, so what if they tell you that the solutions are x equals -6 and x equals 7, but they want you to find the equation that gives the solutions? Well, in this case, we're going to have to work backwards. So this time, you see how we have the solutions, x equals and x equals. Let's put them together with the x. So let's go backwards, meaning I'm going to add 6 on this one. So it's going to be x plus 6 equals 0. You see how we did the opposite. Instead of getting the 6 on the other side, to get x by itself, we want to put it back with x. So how do we get this 7 back with x? Well, we're going to have to subtract it from both sides. So x minus 7 equals 0. And see, now we have the factors. Now that we have the factors, we're going to put them right next to each other. X plus 6 times x minus 7. Those are our factors. And those were equal to 0. But now we're going to have to use the FOIL method, or you can use a box method. But I'm going to try FOIL. FOIL means you're going to multiply the first two. So x times x, well, that's x squared. Then you're going to multiply the first and the last. So x times -7, that's -7x. Then we're going to multiply the inside. positive 6 times x, that's positive 6x. And last but not least, we're going to multiply the last. 6 times negative 7 is negative 42. And this equals 0, because we're going to keep that 0 there. And now we're going to combine like terms. So we have x squared. That's going to be the only x squared. But right here in the middle, negative 7x plus 6x, that's negative 1x. And then minus 42 equals 0. And there we have it. There is the equation. There is the results of when we have the solutions coming to one full equation.